only paused a moment when he heard him holler, "Stop!" Hey, hey, hey! Yeah, Guardo, we're back, man. Hey, hey, hey. Anyway, this is the. Thank you for tuning in. This is the prediction for the Saul Canelo Alvarez going up against Callum Mundo Smith, you know, and for the WBA and the WBC super middleweight titles. The WBA is Callum Smith's title. The WBC was vacant, which always baffles me that any of those major titles like that would be vacant for any reason at all. But usually when they become vacated, it's because the fighters went on to other things, or maybe they finally just retired. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, we're going to break both the fighters down. I'll give the prediction, and we'll go from there. We'll start out with Callum Smith. 6'3". That just jumps out at you right there. 78-inch reach. He's 27-0, 17 knockouts for around a 70% knockout ratio. And when you look at that, you're like, oh, dude, this guy's a world beater. And then you look further into it, and you realize 7 of the fighters he fought were straight up bums. And that kind of, makes you question it automatically. Like, look at a fighter's first 10 fights and see who he fought in those. And then you're like, oh, this guy maybe wasn't he wasn't like that Olympic boxer or that kind of stuff. He's like the real deal kind of thing coming into everything, I mean, we look at that Hassan Njikam. I have no idea how to say Hassan's full name, and I apologize. I should have learned that ahead of time because it's not cool to mispronounce people's names. But we'll go with Hassan. George Groves. These are some good names that were on it. Eric Skaglund. He had fought him. He was an undefeated fighter, 26-0. But after he lost to him 3 years ago, he never fought again. So let's look into him. He's obviously at 6'3". He's going to have pretty much the height advantage on every fighter he ever fights. With that, but he's got a 78-inch reach for being 6'3". So sometimes that's not always, at that height, 78. I guess maybe that's a good reach there. I'm 5'10", almost 5'11", and I have 76-inch reach. So I guess I still have pretty long arms. It's not like they shrink over time. I mean, you might get shorter, but your arms just get longer, and that means eventually my fingertips are going to be able to touch the ground. That's all that means. So we look at him. He's got a high guard. He can be timed though, because he does this up down. Anytime you see a fighter do that, punch, punch, punt. You see what I'm saying? There's always that timing thing in there. And while he can throw nice straight punches down the pipe, he tends to load up, and when he really loads up on the right hand, he comes back and then he throws it out and it gets a little wide. When he's not predicting it, or when he's not really trying to load up, I believe his right hand is even more effective when he throws it straight down. The jab is nice. He'll do ones, 1-2s. He throws he'll kind of go a high low. He'll throw the jab and then go to the body. He throws lead right hands. Does a lot of nice things in there that you see. He's not the fastest person in the world, but he's not extremely slow. I would like to see more movement out of him. He doesn't he doesn't move around a lot on his feet. He's not on his toes. He's kind of a flat-footed fighter a bit in there when it comes to that. And he doesn't really use his size to his absolute advantage. You would like to see that. He works the body again. He loads up. We talked about the right hand there. A lot of 1-2s and all that. When he opens up for combos, it looks nice. He can throw them. And, that's the thing. He doesn't like to fight inside. I watched a few of his fights to do this because I just didn't want to watch one. But fighting inside is not his thing. I believe it was Richie was his last fight that he did. I have the computer here. Why don't I just pull it up while I'm talking to you guys? But I believe it was John Ryder. My apologies. In there, and he struggled a bit at times when Ryder put pressure on him and got to the inside. And Ryder's not as prolific a puncher, or doesn't have the knockout percentage close to what Canelo is, which Canelo's like 65. But we'll get to him later. As we look there, doesn't fight well, not only inside, but he doesn't fight well when his back's against the ropes. So inside fighting on that. He's not that great when he fights off his back foot. He's usually more of a come forward a little bit fighter, at least at that distance. He doesn't get in and get out. He's not that fighter. He's more that stand up, typical. You can't even say typical European anymore, because Tyson Fury flushed that down the toilet, because he does everything that you would want in a fighter. Anyway, I'm not talking about him now. Again, let's get back to Callum Smith. He's not a fan of pressure, doesn't move a lot, and can be flat-footed at times. So you look at that, and we come over to Saul Alvarez, Canelo, 30 years old. Oh, also Callum Smith is also 30 as well. And it's nice to see Alvarez actually fighting people closer to his age now, because he's got some old people on his resume, or he's got them 38-year-olds like Kovalev is. I think maybe Kovalev's 37, but Triple G's like 38 when he fought him. He fought Cotto when Cotto was 35. These are really nice fights, and he's spotting and picking. And I think he learned some things from Mayweather when he chose this fight. Did I give my prediction away? No, I didn't. You don't know. You don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, this is his fourth fight, roughly at the super middleweight or above. He did fight light heavy, won, beat Kovalev, knocked Kovalev out in the 11th round. So that was kind of crazy to see this guy who started out at welterweight, basically, super welterweight, and coming up now and fighting as high as light heavy. I don't think that's good for him. I don't think fighting light heavy is good for him. He looked a bit, he still looked in shape, but he just looked too thick, if that's a thing. Just didn't look as good as him. But anyway, we know his resume. It's the who's who of the welterweight and the super, and light middleweights, right? Really not a lot of, the Daniel Jacobs win, I think, is every bit as huge, if not bigger, than what he did with Triple G. If we're being honest about it, because I think Daniel Jacobs is that bigger fighter, carries more power, he's more dangerous, but I give all the props to him for doing that. And now with Callum Smith, I think Callum Smith is kind of more tailor-made for Saul Alvarez. We look at him, Jacobs, Triple G, Chavez Jr., Cotto, we named them all. Again, none of them are super middleweight. He's giving up 8 inches in reach in this one. He gave up 4, I believe it was. No, it was only 2.5 to Kovalev. Kovalev only had 72.5 inch reach. He stood 6'1", I think it was. And man, I'm like, dude, you got some stumps, man. He's going to have to fight inside, giving up this 8-inch reach, but that's good, because there's a couple things that Canelo Alvarez does well. Counterpunching and fighting mid-range to inside. He does really well in those areas. He doesn't do as well when he fights fighters that are kind of on the back foot. Floyd Mayweather. You start looking at fighters like that, they gave him some trouble. Well, a lot of trouble. And he doesn't do as well against those type of fighters. Erislandy Lara is another one that comes to mind way back in the day. That was a long time ago. That was like 5-6 years ago. Anyway, yeah. So you look at those, and he struggles with those boxers that keep distance. But he does a lot of really good things. He does the high-low. His work rate's better. His stamina's there. He's good at countering. These are all things that you really want to see with a fighter there. His power carried late. He knocked out Kvekin. Kvekin. It's like Kovalev. Jesus, what is wrong with me? Sergey Kovalev. He knocked out Kovalev, and the last 3 fights that Kovalev's lost, he has been knocked out. You know, Andre Ward kind of started that, and you didn't want none of Andre Ward. But Callum Smith lines up really nice for him. He's a little bit slower, not as much movement at these heavier weights. Slower as in he's kind of more plodding or more methodical, if you want to look at it that way. And he conserves his energy, but he's still a cumulative puncher, hits you in the same spot over and over and over again, and breaks you down and eventually knocks you out as he's sitting there. My God, how many fights? He's 53, 1-2, 36. Yeah, 36 KOs. So at that 64-65% knockout ratio, it's kind of carried up as he's gotten bigger and stuff. But he's fighting world champion. So it's a little bit harder to knock out world champs than it is a dude you fought when you were 19 years old. Again, he's that boxer puncher. He applies the pressure. The hand speed seems to still be there for most of it. You're not going to keep all of your speed as you go up in weight. Doesn't work that way. As you get older, you lose a little bit, but you gain a little bit in different areas. Maybe you lose a little speed, but you gain a little power because you got that thicker man muscle coming up on you and stuff. I think 160 to 167 is like his max. And I know what you're saying, but he just knocked out Kovalev, who's like the #1 ranked light heavyweight. Yeah, but Kovalev's not Andre Ward. And when there's an Andre Ward that comes along, they will freight train that dude. Just because of the size. The imposing of the will. I don't want to get carried away with that. We're talking about one of the greatest, if not the greatest light heavyweight fighter of all time in Andre Ward and Saul Alvarez. They're not fighting each other. But that could be something on the horizon. So we look at that, and the speed is still there, and he applies pressure. And that, I believe, is the biggest thing that is going to affect this fight. Callum Smith does not respond well when put under pressure. If he's able to control the fight, you're in trouble. If he's able to keep distance, you're in trouble. His footwork, though, with going back to Callum Smith, he's not dancing around. There's not a lot of fast movement and footwork coming out of the guy. There's not these swift turns into angles that he's going to catch you. It's going to be a long jab that comes out, occasional straight right. Sometimes when he loads up, he pulls back and throws it out and stuff. He does throw some unique combinations. I've seen him come in with the left, the overhand right, and then somehow turn it in and goes with an uppercut into that as well. So that might be something that can sneak in. But if overall we look at this, I think the pressure from Canelo, I don't know if he's going to... he knocked out Kovalev. So, and we'll have to see how that cut on Callum's eye has... it should be fully healed, but once you get a cut, you get scar tissue, and you're susceptible to cutting easier. It's easier to cut once you've already been cut. It's just like that. His skin is not as resilient and doesn't stretch as much anymore, and you're just kind of left with that. So we look at that, bringing it all together, and if we're looking at a prediction in that, the prediction would be Saul Alvarez is going to win the fight, and I think it's going to be by late knockout. And I'm going to call the 10th. I'm going to call the 10th. I always like the 10th. just as you're getting ready to get into the championship rounds. I think his pressure, the cumulative punches that he does, the ability that he's going to be able to counter. I think he's going to be able to counter Callum Smith quite a bit because he's going to get closer. He's got the hand speed over Callum Smith. And I think the style is just bad for Callum Smith. This isn't good. And we're going to see, I believe we're going to see it. And if not, you're going to tell me. and speaking of tell me, please comment, rate, subscribe on the video. Hit the bell thingy. That's a thing, right? Guardo? The bell? Yeah, notifications. Hit that thing. And we'll do this, all right? And maybe I'll talk about the Anthony Joshua Pulev fight. Did you need that? Do you need that, really? Really? Anyway, have a great one. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Keep punching. I'm out.